get into this. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Marlon Chito Vera, who this past Saturday night at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas defeated Rob Font by unanimous decision. The scores read 48-47, 49-46, and 49-46 on the judges' scorecards. Mark, let me send it over to you first. This was a huge, probably career, biggest win of his career right now for Chito Vera. What were your thoughts in the aftermath?
I mean, what a fight. So many different storylines coming out of that fight that I want to note. But first off, I need to give props to Marlon Vera right out of the gate. There was a time as recently as 2018, maybe even 2019, where Marlon Vera kind of felt like he was just going to be a good, fun fighter who never came near the top necessarily. And this man is now ranked number 5 in the world. So huge respect to Marlon Vera for the rise that he's on. Second off, what a damn fight. Holy hell. Both guys are so damn tough. So props to both of them for the entertainment that they gave us in that one. And third off, that was one of the most unique fights I've ever seen. I'm struggling to think of a fight where the guy who was looking way slicker and landing way more is the guy that lost a decision. Yeah, we've seen that guy get finished, or we've seen that guy then get out wrestled when the opponent changes the game plan and lose a decision because of that. But we've never seen that guy who was landing way more on the feet like that lose the decision in a fight that stayed on the feet the entire time. It's pretty wild to think about. I mean, I shouldn't say never. Maybe it's happened, but I can't think of any that were comparable to the way that played out. Mm-hmm. But it was the right call, in my opinion. Of course, round 1 went to Rob Font. He came out looking absolutely surgical. He was landing everything he threw in round 1. And Vera kind of came out and took round 1 to compute. He watched how Rob Font was moving, how he was throwing his punches. I'm sure he made notes on where he thought he could find openings. And honestly, he barely even threw a punch. He almost entirely kicked. It was like he consciously came out and said, let me not have any boxing exchanges at all yet until I kind of get a feel for how Font is moving and throwing. So if you watch that round 1 back, it's weird because he almost never throws a punch. Then round 2 is more of the same until Vera drops Font with the left hook late. And honestly, on the rewatch, I didn't even think it was enough to steal the round. Live, I was like, I think he might have stole it. On the rewatch, I'm like, I think that was still Font's. I had Font so far ahead prior to that. It was almost like a carbon copy of round 1 where Font was kind of just steamrolling him until that happened. So at that point, now that I've rewatched it, I still had Rob Font up 2-0. But that is the last round I gave him. Round 3 was similar again, but when Chito drops him in round 3 with the knee, he pours it on much more on the ground, and I thought in that case it was enough to swing the round to him. But these rounds 2 and 3, they do raise an interesting debate on how to score fights in terms of volume versus damage. It was very unique to see rounds like that, but I think Vera did do enough to take round 3. In round 4, we get the sweet chin music from Vera, which was incredible. Dropping Font again, he wins that round. And then round 5, he's winning throughout and punctuates it at the end with another sweet chin music in the same fight. Who the hell pulls it off once, let alone twice? So it was 48-47 Vera on my card, and I left that fight so impressed with Marlon Vera. What jumps off the page is that he might be the calmest fighter in the history of the UFC. His heart rate might be 0. He looks like he could take a nap mid-fight. He's so good defensively. He blocks so much with his elbows and his forearms and his wrists in that high guard. So many things bounce off him, glance off him. He absorbed 223 strikes and looked like he went for a walk in the park at the end of that fight. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's not the best boxer or the best kicker or really the best anything, to be quite honest. But he is a fighter, and he presents a tremendous variety of danger. He is dangerous in so many different ways. And even in that fight, he drops Font with a left hook. He drops him with a knee. He drops him with 2 big kicks. If only one of those drops was an elbow, he would have dropped him with every body part you can drop someone with. So he left Rob Font's face butchered. I mean, it was literally grotesque. And again, props to Rob Font, because that guy never even considered quitting, and he had chances to, especially at the end of round 3. I wasn't sure he was going to get off the canvas at the end of round 3, but what a night for Vera. He had a great post-fight interview afterward, came off super likable. And I loved that he said Perillo told him, your mind has finally caught up to your body, because that feels incredibly accurate watching him fight. And he is going to have a huge fight coming up on the horizon here.
Absolutely. All right, Omar, let's bring you in here. What were your thoughts in the aftermath of this huge win by Marlon Chito Vera?
So, I'm not surprised. That's my initial reaction.
Oh, yeah,
So-
we all took Vera, guys. Good for us. We nailed it.
I've been telling you guys for years, Chito Vera is that dude. He's had his ups and he's had his downs, but I've seen infinite potential in that kid, and he's just needed a good spark to set him off. And I think we've long since passed where that spark hit. But watching him this past week, the cardio on that kid, I think, was the one thing that I took away from it is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. He might even have better
I forgot to
cardio.
even mention that, so I'm glad you did.
Yeah, his cardio. I mean, when we talk about good cardio, one of the people that comes to mind is Colby Covington. After the end of that Jorge Masvidal fight, you could see him going at least a couple more rounds. Chito Vera looked like he could have fought 5 more rounds, 10 more rounds. He didn't even look like he was breathing hard after beating the shit out of Rob Font. And regardless of the strike differential, which I think set a record for winning with the lowest strike differential in UFC history, he still was able to put power shots together. He was still able to keep his composure. He was still able to keep his cardio in line to the point where, again, he looked like he could have just done that entire thing 2 or 3 more times without breaking a sweat. It was terrifying. That was the biggest takeaway that I had from that fight, apart from everything else that Mark just said. But the cardio is absolutely killer and might present a real problem in that division with a lot of people, including Aldo, if they have a rematch, because there might be a very different Chito now than what Aldo faced just a couple of years ago. So,
yeah, that being said, Omar, let me stay with you. Let's just go right into what you think is going to be next or should be next for Chito Vera. You think the rematch with Aldo is the thing that should be happening at this point for him?
As interesting as I think it would be, I don't know if it's the right thing to do next. I think at this point, and I think he was calling for it, I'm down for a Dominic Cruz fight. Dominic Cruz has kind of been jawing a lot about not wanting to fight people below him. He doesn't want to be the ladder to people to climb on. That's totally fine. Now Chito's ahead of him, so now he doesn't really have an excuse. I know Dom is looking at different people for a fight, but I think that Chito fight is very, very interesting. But if you don't go down that route, then I would have to think Peter Yan would probably be the next best course of action. Stylistically, that clash right there is money-made violence right there. And I really couldn't tell you exactly who wins that fight. That would be a fight of pure will and determination up until the very end.
Mark, what about you? Any names in the upper echelon at bantamweight that you want to see Chito Vera fight next?
Yeah, before I throw a name out quick, I just wanted to say I wanted to mention, what must it feel like being Rob Font, landing on that dude 1 million times and never hurting him one single time?
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be the most frightening feel. Like, you got to feel like you're fighting a robot. Like, he's probably like, I don't understand how I can't hurt this guy. And I don't understand it either. I don't understand how Vera couldn't get hurt by anything.
It makes you wonder too what it
man.
actually felt like, because when you hit somebody, especially like good, there's almost a softness to it. But a lot of times when guys are ready for it, there's a little bit of resistance even when you're actually hitting somebody. Like you'll feel the solidity to somebody. And so I wonder if it just felt like hitting a brick wall for the entire time that he was throwing all of those punches.
I do wonder. I think it's a few things. I think he's stupid tough. Yeah. I think, as I mentioned last week, that maybe Font's power is not quite what people thought, which Cody taking so many shots from him made me start to think. Yeah. And I think Vera really finds a way for shots to bounce a little bit. Like, they look like they're hitting him, but they're not hitting him as flush as you think. But anyway, to go back to the match, maybe.
Yeah, do it.
I'm just so interested in the way that fight played out. It was a wild fight.
Yeah.
I think Vera's matchup depends a lot on what they do with Aljamain Sterling. If Aljamain Sterling is going to get Jose, whatever reason TJ is not ready or it's not going to work out, then I think Vera versus Dominic Cruz is a perfect fight, and that's where I go. If Aljamain Sterling is going to get Dillashaw, I think they're probably going to make Aldo and Cruz, which leaves Vera without that fight. So when you get to there, he could fight Corey Sandhagen, even though Corey's coming off a couple losses. That would be a banger. I almost didn't want to say Jan because I want Jan to fight Merab, but goddamn, as Omar said, Vera versus Jan would be a friggin' crazy fight. So yeah, there's options. Bottom line is they're all good, and he's going to be in a huge fight, whoever it is.
I feel like I'm going to say this now. You guys may disagree with me. I want to know whether or not you do. I'm at a point where I kind of want Dominic Cruz to retire. Agree? Disagree?
He's winning, so I can't say that.
No, he won. He's coming off two decision wins in a row. One a split, one unanimous against not terrible competition. That being said, I'm just like, I don't know.
I normally feel like when guys should retire is when they don't look like themselves anymore, which is why even in his win streak, I still think Arlovsky may want to think about it. But Dominic Cruz looks fantastic when he fights still. Like, his movement is still outrageous. I think the biggest mark on his record so far was that Cody Garbrandt fight where he got styled on. I mean, Jesus Christ. But I mean, his comeback since then has been short of the Henry Cejudo no nonsense Peterson debacle. We haven't really had a mark on his record either. I mean, he's been pretty spot on the entire time, and he's looked good. His performances have looked good. So
yeah,
I can't agree with this one, unfortunately.
I would need to see him look a lot worse to say that.
As good as he is as a fighter, and he's one of the greats, I think he's just as great of a color guy on the table, on the mic. And I just don't want him to take any terrible damage in his later years. I want him to be able to walk away on his own power and just continue to kill it and make a killing at the commentator's table.
Let me ask you this: he fights Chito Vera next, and he beats him. Are you going to feel different?
No, because Chito Vera is going to ruin him.
No, I said, what if he beats him? Like, we don't know yet.
Well,
like, this
Mike's like, that's not going to be reality.
If he uses a ton of movement and scores on point and wins on points against Chito Vera, I'll be like, all right, keep going. But
that's what I'm saying. I got to see one of these guys starch him to be like, okay, the title dream is dead. Until I know that title dream is dead, who am I to tell him to stop?
Yeah, it's true. All right, sorry for the detour.
Wait, because you brought it up now. You opened the door.
Okay.
I'm gonna give this hot take. Dominic Cruz is not the best color commentator.
Oh, I think he's so good.
That dude. Matter of fact, that dude is like cinnamon. If you just put cinnamon in your mouth, you're gonna choke and you're gonna die. But if you add cinnamon to things like milk and chocolate and other ingredients that are good, then it works. But you can't have Dominic Cruz by himself by any stretch of the imagination. That man is a Sahara desert of dry. Okay?
I might surprise Mike here by completely agreeing with that.
Oh
statement.
my gosh. Who do you guys love on color?
He's super knowledgeable.
He is.
He sucks the life out of fights. Like,
I
if it was not
know
the
what
other
you mean.
guys like keeping him up, it's bad.
If you-
He needs to be with the right people.
The sad thing is I know how much he despises working with DC on the commentator's table because of how much DC apparently doesn't do his own work or whatever the case is. But
they
DC is
need
the
it.
best. Dude, he's the
100%.
best one to be with Dom because of
knockouts
how
happen in-
crazy he is.
Yeah, knockouts happen, and Dom's like, oh, he catches him with the left.
Well, that's
We need more, Dom.
and Dom's
Right.
like, well, he should have had his right hand up. He's been doing it all fight.
DC,
And DC's
probably
like,
is the best.
oh, your mom,
I mean,
he killed
I don't
him.
know.
DC's pants are off.
I think DC probably holds the record for most quotable moments from the color. And
I mean, Michael
we got-
Bisping
I mean,
is working his way up.
if anything, we
I
got
love Felder.
we got Thug Rose out of DC, and that's just
Yeah.
lives in eternity now.
Yeah. But look
All
at
right,
I
let's
mean, look
move
at
on.
Bisping.
We have so much to do. Let's get back
Oh,
on
you're
track.
right. Bisping's eye. He said a joke about his eye this past
dude, I
weekend,
know,
and it was
great.
glorious. Okay, I'm done. Go for
Believe
it.
me, it really helps to see in fights.
Bisping is he's gold. He's gold.
Yeah, he's
All
great.
right.
He's great.
I mean, I agree. In terms of going back to Chito's next fight, I think Aldo, the rematch makes a lot of sense. They're both streaking. They're both coming off wins now against Rob Font. I mean, as for Rob Font, let's talk about him real quick. I don't think we have. He's now dropped 2 in a row. Maybe a matchup against Corey Sandhagen, who has also lost his last 2 fights. That might make sense. What do you guys think? Mark, why don't you take this one first?
To be honest, I didn't think about Corey. I was thinking that Font had to go down, whereas, yes, Corey's lost 2 in a row, but he's still ranked ahead of Font. But I guess that's possible. The person I thought of first was Frankie Edgar, just because they never crossed paths and are both losing right now, and I think that's a really cool style matchup. But then Kyler Phillips popped into my head, who I feel like deserves another shot at a ranked fighter. And I know that's a big step up in the rankings, but Font has lost 2 in a row, and there's some questions about him now, so I don't think it's crazy. And I think that fight would be incredible between Phillips and Font. So I doubt we get that one, but I like that one.
Omar?
Yeah. I don't know if I'm sold on that Kyler Phillips one. That's
Come on, let's go.
It's like throwing a 7-year-old into the middle of the ocean there.
Dude, he's good, man.
I mean, Rob Font didn't drop down that far. I was thinking somebody more like Song Yadong if you're going to go down the list a little bit. That's probably as far as I'd go for right now.
Kyler Phillips beat Song Yadong.
When did this happen?
I mean, Song Yadong is ranked above him. Don't get me wrong.
All right, well,
but I'm saying,
there you go.
don't hate on my man Kyler Phillips.
I'm just saying.
Let me
Only
just
reason
hop in
he's
real quick.
Let me
and
say
just
this.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know you said the same, that you also wanted to tap in. The only reason
Yeah.
Kyler Phillips is not ranked is because of that bullshit loss to Raleigh Paiva that he didn't lose. If it wasn't for that, he'd still be in the rankings.
Well,
Hey,
wasn't that supposed to
Kyler
be a
Phillips,
draw
real quick.
anyway?
Kyler Phillips, I've said it before, the Steph Curry
Yeah,
of
we know.
MMA.
No.
Call back to my
what
own
was I gonna
stupid
go?
comparison.
Oh, but yeah, Corey Sandhagen. That's actually a really good pick. I hadn't even really considered Corey either, but when you said it and when you explained it, that honestly seems to make the most amount of sense, to be quite honest. I'm down for that.
I'm also thinking for Font's health, maybe it should be Frankie, just so he's not fighting someone who's going to further destroy his face, and his face gets a little bit of a break. Like
Rob
fight
Font's
a wrestler.
face? Yes.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I was just going to make this point, Mark. I actually love the call out of Frankie. Frankie was like my number 2 idea for Font because I actually like that fight a lot for Frankie as a guy who's a legend and is obviously in the later years of his career. I would love for him to fight a guy like Font who, skill for skill, I think it's going to be a great matchup, but also Rob Font is not a guy at bantamweight who's just going to blow Frankie away like he has in so many of his recent fights.
Power.
I mean, he got knocked out by Brian Ortega. He got beat up by Max Holloway. He got TKO'd by Chan Sung Jung. He got flying kneed into another dimension by Corey Sandhagen. And he got front kicked into the face by Chito Vera. I mean, the guy in the past, 4 years has taken a lot of damage from other bantamweights who bring and featherweights who bring a lot more firepower to the ring than he does at this point. Enter Rob Font. It could be a great fight.
Yeah, it kind of keeps them both safe. If Frankie
for sure
loses, it's probably not going to be by knockout. And if Font loses, it's going to be probably via wrestling, and his face doesn't have to be re-butchered after this butchering.
See, if there's somebody that I was going to argue should probably look into retirement, I would have said Frankie Edgar before.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, man.
This is a guy that used to spend his career priding himself on the fact that he had the chin that wouldn't go, and now his chin goes every other time.
He's close. If Rob Font knocked him out, I think that might be it.
Yeah, man. All right, let's move on. Is there anything else you guys want to say about Chito?